what did it feel like now that you're an ex-Muslim now? You don't believe. What was it like?
Well, before I get to that, I just want to comment on
sure.
how interesting it is that like we had very different upbringings and we more or less arrived at a similar position, I believe. I guess we'll come to find out.
Oh, I'm not. I'm a Scientologist now, by the way.
That's a curveball. I did not expect that. No, I know you're joking. Are you?
I am. I am.
You're joking, not a Scientologist.
Yeah.
Okay.
I might become one later. I don't know. I can't predict the future.
All right.
But
well,
yeah, please,
I like
please.
that. Yeah, and I just wanted to say it's interesting that even though they had different approaches, like it's amazing to me that your parents chose to just let you have the faith and even argued for it for a bit, if I'm understanding correctly.
In a way,
because
yes.
it's easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's easier for you growing up where you did, and it's easier for you to deal with reality. But like you said, it may not necessarily be easier to deal with reality that way, depending on how a person thinks. What you said about Dajjal, before I get into how I felt about hell
Sure.
and all that, the Dajjal story was interesting because it did not make sense to me. Because, okay, we've been warned, like I've asked this, okay, we've been warned about someone trying to pretend to be a prophet. So that should just mean that anyone that I meet who pretends to be a prophet,
I know, right?
I will, like, how can I fall for it knowing that it's coming? And I'm told that, you see, that's why the people who fall for it are willfully ignorant. And they deserve to go to hell.
But who made them ignorant? Why are they ignorant? I don't know.
Exactly. Like, are they stupid? Like, are they below average IQ? Is that why they would fall for that? Or do they not know? And if they don't know, is that their fault because they missed the khutbah about it? Like, it's just, it made no sense to me that something like people could be led to hell that way and then it's their fault. Because of a trick. You know, like the whole shaitan concept is a trick that God let an invisible entity with superpowers sort of control
who can
us,
whisper in our minds, in our brains.
Like it has mind control to some extent, but you're supposed to work against that with, Muslim magic, basically, by reading verses and whatnot.
With eternal damnation at stake. Eternal damnation.
Exactly. It's not about getting like good points and which level of heaven you're in. It's about, are you going to hell forever? And it's just, it made no sense to me that God would set these traps.
And he loves you.
Us again.
He loves
you. And
he
loves us at the same time. This is all some kind of like the most messed up Sims game ever.
Oh my.
Oh,
I've tortured my Sims in quite a few games. Yeah, exactly.
You'd make a great god.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, when we talk about this, we're not talking about the actual creator of the universe, like me opposing what he decided. Again, why do I say he? What it decided? This is me talking about an idea of the creator of the universe, the description of it. And it does not make sense to me. But if we were actually talking about the proven present creator of the universe, like I'd bite my tongue because, I know how powerful he is and he would mess me up for thinking that way for some reason. Anyway, but after all that, I was thinking about how, like, you're talking about the fear of hell. I think I don't know if I can make this blanket statement, but any reasonable, rational person who really thinks about things would have to be terrified of hell or existence in general.
How could you not?
Right? Exactly. It's like, if I know how much is at stake, I would dedicate every second of my life making sure that I don't end up in eternal hell.
Well, because so much of life is gray and like it is gray. It's not black and white. Like, what if you make the wrong decision? Like, what if you make something that seems like a good decision but leads to World War III? Are you on the hook for that?
Yeah. No, I'd give you an even simpler example that when I first went to university, I was going into the building where I lived, and there was this guy carrying a case of beer. And I opened the door for him because I'm just trying to be nice. And he went in, and then I thought about it for a bit, and I was like, did I just aid him in sinning? He was carrying a case of beer.
You totally did.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like it even, again, I was a good kid or so, like I thought. I was trying to always be good morally, not just for God. But I remember I actually asked my parents about that situation. I said, should I have not opened the door for him? Did I help him? And they said, yeah, if you can help it, just don't touch that door. Like, and again, now you got to think about every single thing, every single decision. Am I bringing the scales, tipping them closer to me going to hell forever? Like, even if someone who didn't hurt other people, especially not intentionally, it took up a lot of space in my mind, even though I was a good believer, or I tried to be. So, like, I've had a lot of these thoughts, even as a Muslim, like, let alone as someone who's doubting Islam or on my way out of it. And even after I realized I don't believe anymore. So yeah, it is a long process, and it takes time to get over that indoctrination and that fear. But I don't have like the slightest bit of it anymore. Like, my only issues with religion these days are how other people perceive those who left religion, or friction with people who do still believe, with their acceptance of this idea that good people can disbelieve and can critique Islam. Yeah, but thankfully that fear of hell subsides. Like, if you go through the right avenues, it does subside. Because,
I mean, it really does, when you're a believer, it does feel like this real place. Like it feels as real as, I don't know, you've never been to Australia, but you know it's real. And maybe you have, I don't know. But so the question that I often would get on social media and in the few times, basically I kept that I wasn't Muslim anymore like a secret from, you know, people outside just the immediate family. But a few times where I would let it slip, or I just say it, the question I would always get, and the one I want to ask you is, so what do you believe in now? Like, do you think that there's no meaning to life, and that once you die, you're gone? It's not very nice, is it?
Well, that's the thing. It does give you comfort knowing that you mentioned eternal justice or universal justice, something like that.
Perfect justice. That's what God offers.
Justice. Yeah. It's nice. The idea, just because it's nice though, doesn't mean that it's true. Like, the idea that someone, for example, if you're running a business, the idea that if you fail, someone's going to bail you out is comforting. And it may lead you to run your business better, or take, I don't know.
Or be more complacent. I don't know.
Or, yeah, that's another thing. It would let you be more complacent. Like, you keep losing money, say, at the end of the day, and instead of figuring out why, you're just like, you know, I know my method's going to work. Whatever happens, I'm going to be bailed out. Yeah. Like, that's kind of how I see justice today. Because if you let injustice happen thinking that God is able to stop them, or will, or they're going to get bad karma in a certain sense, you know, then you're complacent. You're not doing anything about it yourself. And you've kind of, like, you've transferred that anxiety away from you without actually dealing with it. Of course, it means that now you have to have more on your plate every day when you think about how there is no, or there might not be, some universal justice. But if you really think about justice the way that it's posed in Islam, it's not really justice, is it? Like, the idea that someone will be tortured to make up for their sins, who is the torture benefiting exactly? Like, how is it undoing the injustice? So thinking about that a lot is going to get you out of that mindset that there is no justice anymore. I see it as a more hopeful point of view, as that I am aware that there is no universal justice, so I can now do more about it.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean, because you know, in a way, that's how a religion like Islam actually takes away agency from us. And for as much as people say, you know, these religions are life affirming, if you follow the logic of it, if there is a paradise, then it's actually good for me, if I'm Muslim and I'm a believer, to drop dead right now. Why am I messing around with this whole, you know, temporary dunya business? Let me just go up there. And in that kind of way, it's actually so negative. It's so negative, because everything we do here, if we're a believer, just loses its significance. Even your family members. Like, I mean, the story of Ibrahim, and I can't remember his son's name now. The one he was going to kill.
Yeah. I spoke about that as one of my first things on social
Oh,
media.
okay.
Believe it or not.
Well,
Yeah,
it's like one where you can obviously see the issues with it, because for me the implication, I thought it was, when I was a believer, I thought the implication was that God, trust in God, and even bad things are actually for a greater good. But there's an implication to it. The implication, I think, is that God is telling Ibrahim that your son is not as important. Nothing in this life, the people you love, the ones you care about the most, aren't as important as me. I think that's the nefarious little lesson that comes with it. And that has like terrifying implications. And I can't think of how many times there's been people who, I don't know, they just don't try doing something in life because they're like, oh, well, this life is, ephemeral, temporary. And I just to maybe kind of explain why I wanted to do this social media stuff is, I think it's just one of the biggest tragedies that so many people live life viewing it from this lens. And even though I was no longer a believer, so I don't follow any religions now. I don't subscribe to any religions. I'm a complete atheist. I'm open to maybe there being some sort of creator or some sort of, transcendent meaning to life. So I guess some people would call me an agnostic. But I haven't.
It's funny that you put it that way, because when people ask me, just to put it in a nutshell, like, well, what do you believe now? Or what's your label, kind of. I don't know if when I use the word atheist, they always jump to, then how did we come to be? Then, what do you think is the cause? The way I understand atheist, or at least to me, I don't believe in a God the way that they're described. Like, I don't believe in a God that
you don't believe in this God proposition. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least I can confidently say I don't believe in Yahweh or Jesus or Allah the way that they're presented in the religions that I know of so far. And if there is a true description out there, it is God's job, kind of. It's His duty to deliver it to us if it means heaven or hell. So I'm concerning myself with the big ones, and none of these make sense to me as the creator. Is there a first cause or a creator or a God? I do not know. And I do not need to answer that, because all I need to answer is this the truth? And to me, that is no. And I think objectively it is no, but I don't care to disprove it objectively, because that you cannot disprove the unseen, unknown kind of description.
It's an unfalsifiable proposition.
Exactly.
Which is useless.
It would be a waste of time, in my opinion. Like, there are people who really like to get to the philosophy of that, and is there a God and stuff. I do not concern myself with that. All I concern myself with is, if that God exists, does it want something from me particularly? And so far the answer seems no, because what is described as it wants from me is nonsensical. And anyway, that's just the way that I see it right now.
Yeah. Or just, you could say, I mean, if it seems apparently man-made, because
very obvious.
It's hard to say. I mean, in terms of where the Quran came from, people would say, well, it's a miracle. Like, it's a miracle in composition. It's a miracle in poetry. And the thing, you've definitely heard this, the whole challenge of, I dare you to write one ayah like the one in the Quran. One is beautiful and majestic and full of meaning. And once I left, those kinds of things came back to me, because I was thinking, well, how would you even assess that? Like, how would you even, what standard are you using to determine if something was not man-made? And if you did somehow manage to determine it cannot be man-made, that doesn't mean that the default other position is it is from Allah, who is the true creator of the universe. What if it's another creator?
Different angle. Yeah. There's a lot of jumps there, but I'll offer you a different angle that I hope I didn't just forget. It's okay. Is there a Muslim on earth, a sheikh, an imam, whatever religious authority, that will give you if you give them that verse, that magical verse, they would say, "Yeah, you are right. This sounds divine. You made this up, but it sounds divine." Is there one that is willing to admit that ever? I don't think so. So who is judging this? yeah, like it's just nonsensical. And they say that's because it is the truth, but you're just reaffirming like your own belief at this point. There is never going to be a sheikh that says this actually sounds like this passes the test. So why are we trying to appease it?
No,
right?
It makes no sense. I bet you could,
No.
if you found a sheikh who doesn't have the whole Quran memorized or just pretends like he has the whole Quran memorized, which I'm sure exists. That's just speculation.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. I was just going to quickly say that if you just pulled some ayah from somewhere and said, okay, this is the one I wrote, would they be able, what if they said, no, this is man-made, I can tell with this and this, and then you say, well, it's from Surah Al-Nisa or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, oh no.
Well, that has happened, not with shuyukh, but like with everyday Muslims who do speak and don't speak Arabic. There have been experiments like these, and they obviously don't know. Like there was Sheikh Al-Arifi, I don't know if you know of him. Like he's very big in the Middle East. He had this French teenager, I think. I don't know if he's a teenager or a kid or older. He doesn't speak Arabic, and he had him on a stage, and he gave him 2 verses. One of them is real and one of them is made up, which I found amazing on its own, because how would Sheikh Al-Arifi make up Quran? That is blasphemy. Like, how are you allowed to recite fake Quran? Mm-hmm. But anyway, he did that to get to ask him which one sounds magical, which one sounds divine. Like, you don't know Arabic, but you'd be able to tell them apart, right?
Yeah.
And he chose the wrong one. And they repeated it one more time, and he chose the wrong one again. And that was just like hilarious to me, that nobody can tell. A lot of the stuff in the Quran, if you really read it, and without all the expert opinions who conveniently happen to mostly be Muslim, there's not that much, like, there's a lot of things in it that aren't that miraculous at all. If anything, they sound lazy. Like, there are verses where God rhymes something with something just because it's convenient to rhyme it, not because it makes sense in the context. And again, I say God, but I mean like the author of the Quran.
Yeah.
Whoever and however many that may be. But yeah, it never, like, the Quran being the miracle that proves God does not hold water. And it should, like, if that's the last thing that God's going to give us, the last miracle, there should be no disagreement on that point. But that point is just, like, there are reasonable people who disagree on it, which doesn't seem like God would leave us a point we can disagree on honestly. That is kind of at the core of my disbelief, if you haven't picked that up already.
For sure. No, I feel exactly the same way, because a lot of these proofs, whatever, I mean, we're not going to go through a whole list of them here, but, whether it's, if you're looking at the Quran specifically, but, scientific miracles or prophecies let's not get into that. Or, I don't know, just the fitrah that you mentioned. Of course, it's Allah. Mm-hmm. It's the one that is most compatible with reality. I hear that all the time from Muslims. It ends up being this case where I think that people, to explain maybe why you had such difficulty with trying to find someone who can give you good guidance on how to address your doubts, it's because the belief is assumed. You believe it is the truth. So anything else is secondary. So the proofs are just kind of tacked on, because I think for most case with a lot of Muslims is they believe, and whatever you throw at them, they still want to believe. And so the proofs that they give to others are really, I don't know, like it's hard to say. It's just to comfort themselves maybe, or just to prove to others that they're wrong. It definitely doesn't come from a place where they want to actually get to the truth.
That is the perfect way of putting it. It's not to find the truth. It's just to reaffirm the belief. So, for example, when they give you examples of, I don't know, numeric miracles, those ones especially, they get to me. When they say, if you, I don't know, look at the number 19, if you add up this number with that number, they sound like conspiracy theorists, right? Like, it sounds insane to an outsider. I don't think that converts who join Islam or Muslims themselves, when they grow up, they see that numerical miracle and they think, I now believe in Allah. That is not the progression that it happens in. It is, I believe in Allah, and look at this awesome little factoid that, if you look at it this way, it makes sense that it's, it's just trying to convince themselves and others. But that is not evidence that the creator of the universe would leave. right? He wouldn't expect you to add some numbers together and arrive at a different number and believe that this means it's from Allah specifically, not just the divine good author, you know? But yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah. So here's the other question Muslims will probably want to think, like, why, like, what keeps you going in life? Why haven't you just sunk into nihilism? Why don't you just, go stealing and killing and all that? What would you say, this is a very personal question, I suppose, but what would you say is the thing that gives your life meaning? Like, what is your life guide, I guess? Like, what makes you care about things?
That is a very good question. The answer is not straightforward. So it started with, like, I've had reasons not to care about life. So it makes it even more important for me to find a purpose in life. So I was already starting at a disadvantage, and losing my faith just made it look very bleak, and nihilism seemed like, it made a lot of sense. But I found myself gravitating towards, there were certain forums where I was looking for answers about Islam, and my questions were dealt with as like, okay, you're really trying to, push our buttons here. Why are you asking these questions? When I was sincerely, like, I was following up on questions, and that is not something that, Muslims like to deal with. Because when you don't accept the first answer or the second answer, then it seems like you're being arrogant and, you're just trying to corner them or something. But I was sincerely trying to find my faith. So then I found myself in other communities where I realized that the fact that people actually have these doubts and they find answers that are a lot simpler and a lot more, sensible, like, because it's not from God, and I started to find a lot of comfort in talking to people who have gone through experiences similar to mine, in terms of, their thought process, in terms of their beliefs. And then I realized that I am also able to help people, because I knew by that point from my research, I'm no scholar, but I knew about the topics that I had doubts about. I knew enough about them to, tell people my findings, at least to save them a little bit of time and tell them to keep looking. And I found a lot of, fulfillment in helping others who were more confused than I was, who were, feeling more isolated, more alone because of this whole shift in belief. And that gave me a bit more of a purpose in life. And then focusing on the rest of my life and, trying to do the best for myself and people around me and trying to minimize the harm in this world. That's what I think the purpose of life is to me. Because like we talked about earlier, there might not be any justice universally. So try to affect the circle around you as if like this is the end, as if this is justice. And then I found myself, getting into this, talking to other people, other ex-Muslims, and that sort of dragged me here in another series of events. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is kind of what gives me purpose, helping other people and also enjoying life myself. Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily mean sinning the way that Muslims see it, but a lot of the things that they would find immoral or sins are just, regular things. But, yeah.
Oh, all the bacon you must have had and that you were just dying to eat.
Dude, okay, unironically, I love bacon now, but that just happened to be a coincidence.
All right.
Like, I made a sarcastic video on TikTok. I was pretending to be sincere at first. I don't do this often, but it was a joke, a very obvious joke. I was pretending to be sincere, saying, "This is why I left Islam." And then suddenly I'm like, "It's for the bacon, guys. Like, the bacon is incredible." And then at the end of it, I pretended that like someone just taught me that you can have whatever you want in Jannah. And the point of that is to drive home that if I truly just wanted a food, I could have waited. Right. So all these ideas that we leave for the sin, we know we could have waited till Jannah and, sin as much as we want there, or do it, but it's not a sin there.
Which brings up a whole bunch of other questions. But yeah, like for me, I think I view life and the purpose I want for myself in it to be very similar. I felt that I was born healthy. I was born with a sound mind. I was born with, the opportunity to do many things, like go to university and learn and read and explore. but many people don't. And I felt that I had some sort of responsibility, not because it was a gift to me, but because I had the power to help others or make a positive difference in the world that maybe others didn't. And it felt wasteful to just kind of be selfish and narcissistic and just care about myself. And even though I wasn't Muslim anymore, I still cared about my family. I still cared about others. I still wanted to do the right thing. I still wanted to, you know, find success in society. I still wanted to find happiness. And the flip in my perspective was that instead of waiting for something good to happen after I was dead, if this life was the only thing I had, then I wanted to make the most out of it. And making the most out of it doesn't mean just, you know, stealing all the money and raping and pillaging and all that, but to make the most positive impact in a way that I understood and felt was right, which this is something that Muslims will criticize, is informed by our subjective view as humans and our subjective society. That doesn't mean it's arbitrary. There's reasons for it. Some of the reasons are bad. Some of the reasons are good. Some of the reasons have been changed or replaced. Like slavery, for example, is now pretty much illegal. Not everywhere, unfortunately, but it used to be a basic part of society. But we learned and grew and understood. And so is the case with a lot of the things that we value today.